Insta Live today. Today we are going to talk about coping with infertility. So I'm going to just invite Connie, the fertility nurse specialist from the US, to join us. Hi Connie, how are you doing? So I'm going to invite Connie to join us. Work between UK and US again.
Hi.
Hi. Hi,
Oh, we did it.
Oh my God, such a beautiful place. You are outside.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. You know what? I just traveled from Chicago to South Carolina here in the U.S. And so it's, as you can tell in the background, it's 80 degrees and a sunny blue sky, which we had rain for weeks in Chicago. So we're pretty excited to be here. I'm here for a third-party reproduction conference. So it's really exciting to learn all the other ways of supporting all people through their modern family building, you know?
Brilliant.
So it's good to be here.
And today we're talking about coping strategies.
Yes.
I think it's such an important topic when people are going through fertility treatment or going through infertility, because the emotional distress is a huge part of it, isn't it?
Okay.
So, can you hear me well?
Yeah, I think it's going okay.
Okay. So I thought about talking first about all the different things, the reasons why we feel crap when we are going through infertility. Because there are so many reasons. Of course, obvious reason number one is that we're not getting pregnant, so we're not getting the baby we want. But there's so many other reasons. What reasons do you come across with?
Yeah, I think going, starting from the beginning, Andrea, when we think about it, we're never taught about infertility. We're always just taught how not to get pregnant, right? And so, I don't know in the UK, but here in the US, we have classes and companies that come into grade schools and junior highs and talk about, relationships and reproduction. And it's an interesting concept because it's always talking about how not to get pregnant. And so I don't think any of us have really were taught, at least in our generations and the patients that I'm seeing, that you actually could have a time in your life that you can't get pregnant when you want to. We're supposed to have that fantasy, right? You find someone, you fall in love, you get married, and you have children. And that fantasy then all of a sudden is halted when all of a sudden that first month, it doesn't work, second month, third month, fourth month, and so forth and so on. And I think that that's the common denominator of where it all starts. We're not ready to deal with this crisis. No one's prepared us.
So we're not getting what we want. And of course, it's a big event in our lives. And I think that brings us to the stigma as well, because just like we were not expecting to have challenges conceiving, other people around us weren't expecting us to finding it hard to conceive as well. So there is this stigma associated with infertility. So that's an add-on to the emotional distress that people feel, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's just it's an expectation in the world we live in today that this is what you do, and there's so many different paths that people take early in life, later in life, and in between in life when they're ready or sometimes when they're not ready. And I think just like any type of quote unquote disease process that happens to our body, we feel that our bodies failed us and we've done something wrong. And so us, especially as women that I deal with, this is what they carry with them, that they are a failure because they can't get pregnant. When in actuality, I think what we both really promote in our practices is that we all need to not think infertility, we just need to think fertility. And I think that's the start of a coping mechanism, a coping healing strategy. So you don't have to carry on that failure or that shame or anything else that goes with that diagnosis that we don't need to live.
Yeah. So there's the fact we're not meeting our goals. the stigma, feeling like a failure and inadequate. And then there's the financial pressure as well, that adds on to the emotional distress. So many people, I know here in the UK, they had to remortgage their houses, borrow money from family, friends, or do crowdfunding campaigns. It's a big, big burden in relationships as well. And then there's the fact that men and women cope differently. So you're trying to cope with your challenge and with your, and still having to have this communication with your partner and being mindful of what your partner is going through and how is he feeling and coping with things.
Yeah, and everybody, men, women, any couple formation, we all cope so differently from each other, and it's a very difficult time, whether it be emotional, physical, financial. How do you pay? How we can't pay? You know, what so many people that I've talked with, that I work with, they even put up second mortgages to pay for fertility treatment. You know, it's extremely distressing. And so I think as what we do as nurses especially is to really teach the strategies and teach how we can change our mindsets and our situations to help evolve into a better lifestyle of coping with this during the stage of life.
So, taking all of these that we've been talking about, are you surprised that emotional distress is the #1 reason for people to stop treatment?
Yeah, I know here in the U.S. it is. You know, there's a lot of studies that are out, a lot of research, and everybody would think it would be money, it'd be a financial. And we live in Illinois here in the U.S. We live in a mandated state. So insurance companies pay for fertility treatment. And so if people are not dropping out because there's no coverage, they're dropping out because of the failed cycles and the inability to be able to balance life and needing that break. And that's where, as businesses, that's where things break down for both the patients and the physicians and the practices providing the service.
Yeah, one of the things that was really important for me when I was a patient, and that I always emphasize when I speak with my patients, is that whatever they are feeling is normal, because they are going through a circumstance that they weren't expecting. So it's normal to feel angry, sad, depressed. It would be abnormal to be okay.
Right.
If everything was happening.
Yeah.
That would be abnormal.
Right. And I think one of my favorite quotes during all this, it's okay not to be okay, you know?
Exactly.
And whether it's your loss of reproduction function, or with myself, loss of a leg or something that you have a loss of, we have to grieve it. And it's such a big word. People don't think about grieving process when they have infertility or a diagnosis or whatever. And it truly is. You actually are going through all the 5 stages of grieving, and everybody gets stuck, right? They get stuck, they're angry, or they get stuck in their sadness, or they get stuck in their denial. And it's a beautiful thing when you reach resolution. Resolution doesn't always mean pregnancy or family. It can mean just resolution, be able to go forward in life into the next stage of life, which is an extremely rewarding part of the journey as well.
That's a very good point. You're talking about that process of grief. So it's a normal medical term. It's a process that is acknowledged that people go through. So it's good for people to understand that all their emotions are absolutely normal.
Right.
One thing that I've noticed, and like you said very well, is that when we look at the image of the process of grief, it starts with the shock, denial, sadness, depression. But the process is not always linear. Sometimes
Correct.
we go forward and we can even stuck in the middle.
It's not linear. I mean, I think any disease process, there's no linear in any of the disease process, including infertility. Because one day you're gonna, be able, you might be at resolution one day, and then the next day you're back to denial, and the next day you're back to anger, and someone at work said something, or you're going to a baby shower or something. So you are evolving and really kind of like weaving in and out of those 5 stages constantly. It's not like you're all of a sudden, I'm not sad anymore, or, I'm not in denial anymore, I'm here. And it's not necessarily how any of this works. And you're absolutely right. It is not linear.
Yeah. And when we look at acceptance, I think as a patient, it can be quite scary because you are looking forward to having a baby in your life. And acceptance, a lot of times, is perceived as life without children. So a lot of times I say that acceptance means different things at different times of the journey. In the beginning, acceptance is only accepting that things are not going to be as easy as you thought they would be. And
Right.
coming to terms that you will need a bit of help and being able to embrace that help instead of angrily pursuing that alternative plan.
Yeah, it is. It's so hard because, you know, society puts this image in each and every one of us on how it's supposed to be. And when you don't fit into those supposed to be's, right, we feel we're different. We feel shame. We feel a lot of different labels that none of us should be labeled with or live. And
Yeah.
so, you know, when I see couples that resolve and go forward together, and go down different paths, whether it be with third party or just with each other, it is success because you're able to move forward through life, and that's truly what it is. But it's a really hard place to get to
Yeah,
without
it is.
proper support, management, and education. Really,
Yeah. I would like to share with you one strategy that I have learned maybe 4 years ago when I attended an event in London with Tony Robbins.
oh yes,
And this strategy has changed my life completely. And as a nurse, I have helped so many people. Some people are calling me with suicidal thoughts, and this strategy works, or with severe depression, any strategy works. And so I would like to share it with you for
yeah,
you
I
to
would
tell me
love to hear
if
it.
you agree.
Yeah,
And
he's a
this
great mentor. He's one of my faves too.
so this is called the triad of emotions, and it's a good strategy to use when we want a very quick state change. So let's say we are sad, depressed, and we keep ruminating with these thoughts and we can't get out of it. And we are aware that we can't get out of it. So usually we have the idea that we are not able to control our emotions. And that's the
Hmm.
first step, keeping us from changing how we are feeling at a certain
Right.
point. So this strategy tells you that you can actually change your emotions and how you feel right now. So it starts with, let's say, a time in our lives when we've been really sad or depressed. And I can take it back, for example, to the time when I was diagnosed or when you were diagnosed with your problem.
Yes.
And if I remember and recall that time in my head, I can see that my face is down, I'm crying, my shoulders are down, my muscles are tense. So there is a certain posture that I have
Sure.
with my body. And at the same time, I'm focusing on something in my head. So I'm focusing that I won't be able to have children, that this is not going to work, this is unfair,
Right.
that I'm a failure. So I'm using that, focusing on this problem, and I'm using a certain language, this language that you are a complete failure, you are not good enough.
Exactly.
So we have the triad, which is the posture, the focus, and the language we are using towards ourselves.
Hmm.
And what the technique tells us is that if we change one of these aspects of the triad, we can quickly change how we feel. So usually I start by asking, well, tell me a time in your life when you were so happy, the happiest you have been, you were ecstatic.
Yes.
And that triggers a memory in people's
Yep.
brain, right?
Yes.
So immediately they change their focus. So now they are recalling that time, and I usually reinforce that focus by tell me how you were feeling uh, at that time. What were you feeling? What were you seeing? What words were you using in your head? And how was your body positioned? And how was your body positioned that time? And that in a matter of seconds, just by recalling that experience, people change their posture
Yes.
and their focus. I think this is the most amazing strategy I found to very quickly change it.
It is. It's interesting that we both actually use that strategy a little different ways, but basically the
Yes.
bottom line is it's the whole same concept, because our memories and our minds really just kind of go to an automatic place that's comfortable with, right? And so, when you have a negative pregnancy test, it's much easier to go to sad, I'm never going to get pregnant, this is never going to happen to me ever, than to go to a different place of better posture, better breath, better, because it's hard and our minds pull us into a different direction. But I think it's our jobs and what we do is to really keep training that mind process, that mindset, right? And it
Yes.
doesn't mean that it's less sad. It just means we're able to heal faster and continue
Mm-hmm.
the journey and continuing the journey that we want to be on to get closer to parenthood. So true. And this is where this is where the gap is, and this is where I think a lot of people fall in, because I know with a lot of the couples that I work with, when they come in even for their embryo transfers, I'll talk to them. It's like, what are you here for today? And they're just like, a procedure. And I was like, well, what kind of procedure? Everyone's afraid to say, I'm here to get pregnant, and you think that
Mm-hmm.
if we are going through fertility treatments or not fertility treatments and you're monitoring your cycles at home or timing, is that you are preparing your
Mm-hmm.
body for pregnancy. And it's okay that you know that you are preparing for pregnancy. Our minds need to tell our bodies what we're doing,
Yep.
and we do have a lot of power in our minds to get our bodies on the same level, right? Not to be afraid of it, not to be afraid that you're on the path to pregnancy. And it starts with the
Yep.
period, right?
So that brings me to another strategy that I also used. It's affirmations.
Yes,
So here, I think it's so powerful because when we say something and we say it often and repeatedly, our brain starts believing it. And the connection we make is our thoughts affect our feelings.
absolutely.
No matter how the thoughts I have around a circumstance will always affect how I'm feeling about that circumstance. So my thoughts affect my feelings, of course, affect my actions, and then I will get certain results in my life. So
Yes,
I always say it's really important that you look at your beliefs. Do you believe that this is going to work? Or do you have the belief that this is not going to work? And sometimes
right.
because people have been going on through treatments for so long, there
Yes,
is a hint of belief that this is not going to work because it hasn't worked in the past. So that's
right.
why
And
effort is so important.
you're so right. And you know what? I think it's easier for everybody when they don't have that constant reminder of someone working with them, constant reminder to retrain that mind, and not to be afraid to say that, yes, this will work. And I think it's a protective mechanism. So if you think you're not, you won't be disappointed, right? So it's like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to say I'm excited because I might be pregnant. Well, if I'm not, everybody wants to protect themselves. And I'm just here to say, after all these years I've been doing this, that you can never prepare for a negative pregnancy test to hurt less or hurt, if
Yeah.
if you have a thought process, well, if I think that it won't work and if it does, that would even be better. But I don't think I'm not pregnant, then it's not going to hurt as bad. It's going to hurt as bad. So we might as well
Yeah.
change our mindset and go along with what we want our bodies to do, that we are
Yeah.
preparing for pregnancy.
So usually for affirmations, what I do is every morning in front of the mirror, I repeat the affirmation that I want to believe in. So for me, there's one that I have been repeating for the last 2 years, which is I'm in a permanent state of peace, love, joy, and gratitude. And that helps me a lot because there will always be things in life that we don't know, that will trigger emotions that will be upsetting. And
Yes.
during the day, I don't know what's going to happen today. But if I focus on being in that place of peace, love, in gratitude, I know that even if I don't know the answer, if I don't know how to cope, I know I can go back to it. But there's so many affirmations that people can say to themselves. They can say,
Right.
my body is healthy. I am ready for this pregnancy. And just repeat the same
Exactly.
affirmation over and over again every morning or every evening.
I have one helpful hint. I have one helpful hint when it comes to those affirmations, which I absolutely believe in, and I do myself. And I actually teach a lot of my patients this, is that sometimes though, people say, well, I want to be positive, right? Well, how can you be positive if you're not dumping some of that other dark emotion that's normal to have, but we need to dump it. So
Yeah.
I always kind of talk about dumping and emptying out your mind, emptying out your heart with the stuff that you say, I hate this and I hate this and I hate that, not cover it up with the
Yeah.
affirmation, but fill it up with the affirmation, So dump all the stuff, journal it, write it, get rid of it, dump it, and then fill it up with all those affirmations that you can actually, with a breath, bring it in and
Yeah.
actually trigger your mind to be like, okay, that's right. We can do this.
Connie, I'm going to do a break because there's a lot of questions here about donation. So I just want to say today we're not talking about donation. We're talking about coping strategies for infertility, but we will do a donation Insta Live
Yeah,
month. So please do come and see us again. It's every Wednesday. Connie is a nurse
for sure.
specialist in the US. I am a nurse specialist in the UK. So they were asking where we were. So just so you know, you can reach us through our Instagrams. Just message us, and we will get back to you. But we're definitely doing a donation Insta Live this.
For sure.
Yeah. And so you were talking about writing and journaling, which is so important. And that's actually one of the strategies that I use as well, which is starting a gratitude diary. Can you hear me, Connie? I think we have some connection problems. Well, let's see if Connie can join us back. I was saying that journaling is really important. So I always advise my patients to start a gratitude diary. And gratitude has proved through research with MRIs that it does change the neural connections in our brain. It changes our brain waves. So it might be that in the beginning, it's really difficult to, let's call Connie again. It might be that in the beginning, it's really difficult to identify something that you are grateful for. But with time, you will see that the more you show your gratitude,
Somewhere,
I
every time we do this, we get it really good, and then there's always a little glitch. So
I was just picking up on what you said about journaling, because that's also one of the things that I recommend is starting a gratitude journal. So starting to identify things that you are grateful for in life. And it might be that in the beginning it's really difficult, but the more we do it, the more our brain learns to identify things that we are grateful for. And a lot of research with the MRIs has shown that it does change the neural connections in our brain and our brain waves. So it's so important. I can share with you these past few weeks have been really difficult with the puppy, and it was driving me mad. So I decided to write my gratitudes here in my office, and the last one is I'm grateful for Sammy, the puppy, because he's challenging me to come out of my comfort zone.
yes,
Because and I think that's so important for us to come out and challenge ourselves every day. We tend to run towards comfort, but it's really good to grow, and that only happens when we challenge ourselves out of the comfort zone.
absolutely. And I think that the stage of life that our patients or our clients go through is definitely out of everybody's comfort zone of grief and crisis. And it's a strong word, crisis, but it absolutely is a time of life of crisis. And we have to really develop the strategies and the coping and the education and awareness that it is valid, it is normal, but we just can't sit with it. We've got to get past it and work with it to enhance ourselves into a better way that will last the lifestyle, a whole life through, and learn it now, because it is important to stay well during this process.
Yeah. And another way of being connected and present is doing mindfulness. We've talked about this last week
Yeah,
as
we
well.
did last week.
Yeah. But I think it's so important. The number one that I recommend that is super easy is the body scan. And people can find body scan recordings on YouTube. There are several. And it's 3 minutes where you get to connect with your body and with your mind and with your surroundings. So that's another strategy that I think is so useful, especially when we are worrying about the past or the future, or we are in a 2-week wait or whatever. That's a very good strategy.
Yeah, everybody gets stuck in that. Everybody gets stuck in the past and then the future, and they all clash. They don't give us enough space of our present moment to breathe. And so we have to really widen that gap and make that space a lot bigger for our now and our current moment, which when we have our gratitude and we're aware and mindful of what is good, sometimes just taking that breath, dumping some of the past sadness or the prediction of the future and leaving room for the current moment can actually be a healing time to think clear.
I was thinking about one that I love personally, because we all have this negative voice in our head, right? And sometimes we can't shake it off, and it's there. And I know it's not accurate, but it's still in my head, and it's still affecting my day-to-day life. So my preferred strategy is one where we challenge the voice, because the voice is not always accurate. The voice usually tells us things worse than they are, and tells us things that our best friend wouldn't tell us, and we wouldn't tell our best friend. We're awful towards ourselves, and we are really good at, let's say, I feel that this cycle is not going to work. Let's say that's the thought in my head. And that is triggering sadness or hopelessness in me. And my brain is really good at identifying that all the reasons why that is true. Because it hasn't happened in the past. So why would it happen now? So that is the normal thought process. So this strategy that I use is encouraging people to challenge that thought. Look for evidence that that thought is not true. Maybe you have changed your diet. Maybe this embryo was a better grade. Maybe you're doing different things. Maybe your doctor did a different protocol. So look for reasons that challenge the voice.
You're right. And you know what? The hardest part about all this, Andrea, that when I talk to women or men during this process, they're working so hard on their cycles or the protocols or the procedures. And it's like, I just can't do all of that, right? And it's really, we have to really focus in on the things we can control, because a lot of our reproduction we can't control the way our bodies are, but we can certainly control our thoughts and what we put in our thoughts and how we manage our thoughts. And that's what we really need to strengthen with a lot of the people or anybody who's going through a body malfunction, right, of their reproduction or anything else in their bodies.
Yeah, so we have a question here from Frank. He's asking, how do we create a supportive network, and how do we include people in that network? And I think it's a really good question. How do you advise your patients to find their network so they don't go through it?
You know what? I think it just really depends on where that person is in their current moment. Some people choose to be secretive, right, with their family or friends.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are open with their family and friends or their coworkers. And I think it's working with that particular person and figuring out where their comfort level is and then getting them out of their comfort level so they can expand into a trusting relationship with someone that they can be themselves. If you can't find a network immediately, is to, work with an advocate, work with somebody like you or I, to help expand and get out of that comfort zone and get uncomfortable so we can be connected with more people, that that you feel like you're not alone. And that's my
Yeah.
biggest thing when I'm working with any of my clients is that I never, ever will have anybody feel that they're alone, whether you're with one person or with a room full of people.
Yeah, it can be very isolating, but
Yeah.
said a lot of people want to be secretive and don't want to share, and that's fair enough. From my experience, sharing can be very healing. So even if people can find either one person, they don't have to share the whole story, but
No,
a small
because
part.
that, right. And I think it's important for everybody to know that everybody has a story and they're an expert in their own story. They're not necessarily an expert in your story or in my story or, someone else's story. So be mindful that you may connect with somebody, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they may be the expert. It's just a network of support so
Mm-hmm.
you don't feel alone, right? And so you're networking with the appropriate people for yourself, but not living someone else's story.
Yeah, and I think Instagram is a great network because if you're
Yes,
not ready to share it with your family, you can come on Instagram, use a name or a handle that no one knows it's you, and you can connect with all these people who are going through the same thing. And you
right.
can just come and vent and just share your story and read about other people's stories, and you just find that peer support that is so important.
That's,
But you said the
yeah.
professional support is key, I think. Professional support. Oh, I've lost you. I don't know if we lost Connie again. I was saying that professional support really important. In the beginning, we were saying that it's not only that we have to grieve a loss of not having our reproductive goals met, of not being pregnant the way we thought we would. It's the stigma, because because you might be in the future. So identify a professional that you know will be able to help you when you need. Identify a family member or friends that you know you don't need to tell the whole story, but you might be able to say, look, I'm going through something and I feel really, really bad. Can we just go out and go to the cinema or go to the gym or whatever it is that you enjoy doing? So professional support, a family or friend, and identify peers. If you don't know anyone who's going through treatment, lots of people are going to treatment, but if you don't know anyone, especially because people just don't share it in a normal conversation, you can come here on Instagram or in closed Facebook groups and identify a huge group of people, and there will be someone that you can connect with. We sometimes go out for coffees, there's live events as well. So write down on a piece of paper the key people that are your emotional support team. That would be my number one. If you take anything from today, then that's what I would advise you to. I think we've lost Connie. She must have had a problem with her connection, but our Insta Live is almost over now anyway, and we will be back next week. And don't forget, we will definitely do one on donation. I know there were lots of people sending questions about donation. We will do one. And looking forward to seeing you soon.